Hi, I'm Laura Del Glacia. Technological innovation is constantly changing the way we work. That means job seekers of the future might need an entirely different skill set to be successful. To discuss what the labor force of the future might look like, I'm here today with three of Vanguard's top economists, Roger Aliaga-Díaz, Joe Davis, and Jonathan Lemco. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Jonathan, I'm going to start with a question for you. It's certainly on my mind. What might the future look like for the average millennial worker? Or let me take that two steps further. Someone from Generation Z or the Alpha generation, which happens to be the children of millennials.
You know, it's amazing to think about Generation Z, if that's what we're going to call it. But be that as it may, I think what we are going to see for all of these generations is a work environment in which change will be constant, and where they will have to continue to upgrade their education throughout their working lives. Technology is so powerful a force, and it promotes enough competition as well, that the workers now and the workers of the future will continue to have to adapt to change. And I think we've been seeing these trends now for some time, certainly since the dot-com revolution, but it is moving at a pace that is extraordinary. Social scientists teach us that the typical graduate today can expect to have 7 distinct employers from the time of graduation to the time of retirement. Yeah. And that's a median. Some will be more, some will be less. But what that means is that this isn't so much just job hopping. It means that requirements change, that technology changes, and you have to adapt, that the economy changes. So innovation will be a constant as well. We must be adaptable, and that's the most obvious scenario, I think, for the workforce.
And movement too, right? So yeah. That might not be 7 jobs in the same state or
it implies labor mobility. It implies that we have to move from one state to another state, maybe move internationally. Whatever it is, enjoy what you're doing and recognize that tomorrow it could be different, and that your task may be somewhat different as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, even the analysis we did, right, just over the past decade, we looked at all the detailed occupations, to Jonathan's point. 20% of a person's time, 20% has radically changed just over the past decade on average across all professions. So think 1 day out of 5, that whole day's time spent is on a different type of task than was before. It may be less time collecting information, less time processing it, more time analyzing it. Think of things like that. And so I know that's true in our work, right? And so it probably has other implications for things, everything from lifelong learning to even how one thinks about education going forward. So these are important, what we call mega trends that we've been spending time on. But it's not going to slow down.
So Roger, then what are your thoughts for someone that's closer to retirement age? Is 75 the new 65? How does what we're talking about here impact those workers? Joe,
certainly, the changes will happen throughout the entire labor force, basically, and for people in retirement, technology is basically creating 2 types of changes. On the one hand, we have increased life expectancy from advances in medicine, healthcare, pharma, and on the other hand, we have technologies that basically allow for a more flexible way to work and way to contribute to the workforce. So what is true that the problem in retirement is that now people need to work longer to sustain themselves to retirement. Technology at the same time is making it easier to work longer as basically occupations are shifting away of physical activities or basically physically intensive activities and more into things that people in the 60s, 70s, and 80s could actually even continue contributing from their experience in a very flexible way, be it telecommuting, right, be it part-time, and in different ways.
Joe, let me ask you a question. So technology should boost labor productivity growth, right, and real wages. But despite the technological revolution that we're currently in, we're not seeing that. We're seeing stagnant productivity growth and wages. Why is that?
Well, and there's this notion from some really well-respected economists that believe that not only are we in stagnation now, we are headed for what some call secular stagnation. I mean, we will not see material improvements for average wage growth. We don't believe that's the trend. In fact, we believe it's misdiagnosed. It's not stagnation of what we're currently entering into. It's one of disruption.
All right.
Now, that does not mean that we do not and will not continue to have pockets where real wage growth is marginal, whether it's certain industries, certain certainly certain households in certain parts of the country or any national or regional economy. And that's because those that may be in the crosshairs of technological change and automation, right, through machines. So, but in aggregate, we are seeing more often than not, despite those sources of pain, more often than not, strong gains actually increasingly of labor productivity and wages. It's not as widespread as we would like, but we are seeing that. We see that across various industries. They are typically, they have one shared characteristic.
And what is
and
that?
they are occupations that are focused on tasks where the machine is an asset and are not competing against the machine.
Okay.
So, as one professor in the industry said, you want to race with the machines, you don't want to race against them. So, think of tasks that are uniquely human where the machine's, computer, a robot, whatever it is, that form of technology makes you more productive. We will continue to see that. So, you think of things, everything, and there's various fields that have this. So we will continue to see that, which is why 80% of the world economy is at or near full employment.
So given that we're all parents, what do we tell our children then? Jonathan, you alluded to this a little bit, but what guidance can we give to them about the labor market that they're likely going to encounter?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit optimistic, perhaps too optimistic, but I think when I see my children, basically, they have been born with technology. They live there; it's part of them. So I'm sure they will be able to understand and choose, without perhaps knowing all the background, what are the activities in which they can actually contribute, which is certainly in activities in which they are not going to be trying to compete with technology, but actually in which they are going to try to leverage the technology, but specializing in uniquely human tasks. So it's very broadly defined, but I'm thinking that they will be able to make the right choices.
And I'm thinking, I'm not an educator, but interested in education for my children as well. Obviously, follow your heart. If possible, try to help solve some of the world's problems in any small way. It is this fallacy of stagnation that there's a finite amount of work. Like, look at the challenges we have in the world, right? And there's a lot of good things going on in the world, but there's a lot of challenges.
Opportunity to solve them.
So opportunity to
Jobs
solve
do that, right?
So there's more work to be done, a vast amount of more work to be done.
Great. Thank you very much.